Welcome back, friends. Today I'm asking the question, is your relationship real or fake? We need to know the difference between real love and love bombing to understand. And in this video, I'm going to explain exactly what love bombing is and how to know the difference between real love and love bombing and how to understand where your relationship falls. Hey there, friends. Glad to be back today. And today I'm going to be talking about true love versus fake relationships, knowing the difference between real love and love bombing. There's a big difference between the two, okay? Love bombing is a seductive technique, and it's used through different stages within a relationship. So it begins with the idealization stage, right? Which I call the pedestal stage. And then after the pedestal stage goes away and somebody's put you on this pedestal and given you all these gifts and showered you with all this affection and emailed you and texted you and social media messaged you all day and night, you go through that process, and then the next thing you know, all of a sudden that idealization stage goes away. You're no longer considered the queen or king, and now it's the devaluation stage. And you don't know what happened, okay? Much different from real love where it never changes. Right? There's no idealization, devaluation, discard in real love, but there is in love bombing. So first off, who uses love bombing as a tactic of manipulation? Well, that's a good question. Well, you have narcissists that use that as a tactic of manipulation and control very often. You also use people who are suffering with histrionic personality disorder as well as borderline personality disorder that might use love bombing as a tactic as well. Now, these are very interesting because a lot of times we don't suspect that we're being love bombed. We actually think that we're being loved, cared for, given affection because we've fallen in love and we found that person of our dreams and they're our soulmate or our twin flame. That's something that they'll tell you in the very beginning of the relationship to really tighten your relationship and to move it forward very quickly, even if you don't want it to move that quickly. See, love bombing is used to do two things. It's used to create emotional but also psychological dependency. Right? Because once we get used to all that attention and we're looking at that other person and they're admiring us and giving us these compliments, right? What happens is we begin to depend on them. We begin to be not only more codependent than we already are, but we begin to depend on them. So in this case, we begin to depend on the narcissist, right? And so we look toward the narcissist to define our self-worth. And that's what happens. Because they valued us at such a high level, they saw our worth in the beginning, right? But what happens when they devalue us? All of a sudden, we start what? Questioning our own self-worth. Because they loved us so much, I must have done something wrong. It must be me. I need to check myself. I need to see what I'm doing wrong. I'm the one in the relationship that needs to fix myself. Okay? And that's how love bombing works. Because you were given all this admiration, all these compliments, and then all of a sudden your lover, your twin flame, is finding these problems with you. These obviously have to be your problems, but it's not the case. And that's part of the control mechanism used by the use of love bombing. In a recent previous video, I explained exactly what love bombing is. And you probably want to watch that video to understand love bombing because I describe it to a T. The video's link is in the description below. It's interesting because the history of love bombing goes back till forever, and it was actually used and probably still used to recruit people into religious cults. Okay? Think about that. A religious cult uses control and manipulation to keep people around, to keep their members in check, to do what they want them to do. Okay? And so it creates really quick intimacy, really quick affection, and this really quick bond that makes you believe that you've known each other forever, been around each other forever, and so you're willing to do almost anything to keep that going. So if you haven't already, check out that video because that'll really explain what love bombing is. An interesting thing about love bombing is that love bombing works extremely well with people who suffer from codependency. Okay? And the reason for this is that when we're suffering from codependency, we want other people to love us. We want other people to respect us. We want other people to show us attention. And we want to gain other people's acceptance. Okay? And so that's kind of the calling card of the codependent. I want acceptance from that person, and their acceptance gives me self-worth. And that's the direct attack. That's the perfect victim for someone that's going to use love bombing. because they know that they're going to give you all this attention and make you feel really warm and fuzzy, and then they're going to pull it away, and then you're going to want and crave that attention and do anything this person wants you to do to get it back. I work with many clients, and we talk about the idealization. We talk about the pedestal stage of the love bombing and how that is more like a drug. It's almost like an addictive high, because you've never felt that type of attention or romance or even had that type of sexual engagement before. And so all that combined creates this high. But eventually the drug runs out. And the drug was the idealization pedestal thing, right? That's the stage we're talking about. And when that runs out and the devaluation comes into this new phase, you begin to see the person you're in a relationship with, and you're seeing this different side of them, okay? And you're hoping that things go back to the way they were. You're hoping to go back to that idealization part of the relationship. And so you try to work with them and you talk with them, and you even want to possibly ask them if they want to go to a therapist or talk about it, because you want to try to figure out how to go back to the first part. But the problem with this is that the first part was never reality. So the idealization and the pedestal part of this relationship wasn't real. It was created to make you feel a certain way. It was created to suck you in, to get as much information out of you as possible so that it could be used later in the devaluation stage, right? Your deepest, darkest secrets, things you don't want anybody knowing, so that they can make you feel bad and degrade you, right? And suck you in even further because of the codependence, because you actually look to them for your value, right? Because you gave them all that in the very beginning. Because you saw that and you said, wow, they must love me, they must value me, because they're doing all this stuff for me. And then when they pull it all away, you say, well, it must be me that make this happen, right? Because they gave me all this stuff now, what did I do wrong? Then you start worrying about what you did wrong, and you try to figure out ways of correcting it. But there is no correcting it, because this is a false sense of doing wrong, because it's based out of manipulation and control to control you. And so it's very interesting. And so you being the supply, you being the victim to this person that's using it, okay, causes you great pain. It causes you to feel more codependent, and it eventually causes you to lose your identity. Once you lose your identity, you don't understand who you are, and you're stuck in this relationship hoping and praying that this person will take you back and put you back on that pedestal. One caveat is that people that have a solid sense of self, a solid sense of understanding, self-worth, and self-value based on their own feelings and beliefs in themselves, usually don't get sucked into this type of relationship. Because usually they begin to see it quickly for what it is. It doesn't seem very real. It doesn't seem very honest, okay? And it quickly changes. And so that fake flattery, those fake compliments begin to kind of add up, and all the red flags show. And so somebody that's really gotten solid with themselves usually sees the red flags and will exit stage right, because they realize that they're dealing with what I would consider a psychological predator. Okay, so that's the biggest way to arm yourself against somebody like this, is to realize that in order to not get sucked into toxic relationships and to get sucked in by somebody like this, you have to have a solid sense of self. And that comes with a lot of self-work, right? And that's something that I work on with clients every day, because if you can get solid in yourself, you won't fall for these type of manipulative and controlling type things that happen to a lot of people, because instead of seeing the value within ourselves, we look to other people to see our value, right? But that doesn't help us, because looking for other people to see our value and looking for other people to affirm us doesn't do anything for us, right? Because we actually have to affirm ourselves within. And that's where we find power. And that's where we find understanding, self-identity, and then unconditional love. So a lot of people aren't going to get sucked into this, but if we're codependent and we don't see our self-worth, we can be easily sucked into the situation, which is not a horrible thing, but we need to see the situation for what it is and understand why we're falling into the cycle, because the cycle is based on the inability to really see our value, right? And we're falling for this type of abuse and this type of control and manipulation because we haven't seen our own value, and we're going after this person because we feel as though they've seen our value and we want to be codependent with that, right? And try to hold on to it like grim death. So lastly, like we were talking about, the differences between real relationships and fake relationships, the difference between real love and love bombing is extreme. Real love doesn't happen overnight. It happens through kindness, compassion, respect, having integrity. That is what makes up real, true, unconditional love. Okay? It's not about getting showered with all these gifts, getting all these compliments, and being built up just to be pulled right back down. Okay? So you can see the difference, because real love takes time. And that's why it takes time to really understand and get to know somebody. It doesn't happen overnight. It just doesn't. And so that's the difference between real love and fake love, because fake doesn't last, right? And as we see, it's a manipulative, psychological way of controlling the other person and trying to get what you want. And that is not what real love is. So if you feel like you're in a relationship where you are being love bombed, you can't miss the latest video we did on the signs of love bombing. We go through the signs of love bombing to understand, so that you can be hyper aware of the situation and know if you're in that situation. Check out that video. The link is in the description below as well. And that'll really give you the information and knowledge you need to have to understand the relationship you're in, and to also make the choice you need to make to either stay in it or to get out of it. I hope this video has helped you to understand real versus fake love and be able to understand the concept of love bombing and how it's control and manipulation. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Also, give us a like on this video. Comment if you like on the subject matters that you would like me to discuss in future videos. I want to hear your perspective, and I definitely want to address the issues that are important to you. Don't forget to live your true life.